Welcome back to Rhythm Method Air, folks. Today we're going to talk a little bit about media manipulation. So let me ask you something. Do you feel anxious? Do you suffer from anxiety or depression? Are you getting enough sleep at night? Are you properly medicated? I'm not sure how to tell you this. I'm not sure where to even begin with this because it's really as old as civilization is. It's as old as the Bible. I'm talking about myth, sure, but I'm also talking about propaganda, and I'm talking propaganda under capitalism, which is more like advertising. Its inception. That movie, they give you the idea that they think is yours. They plant the seed of an idea into your mind to the extent that you don't know that it's not actually your idea anymore. And you don't know yourself well enough to know that it isn't your idea. Even knowing, even being aware that it's happening doesn't keep it from happening. And it's like a virus, that earworm parasite that crawls into your eyes and your ears and burrows its way into your brain, and without even realizing it, you're on Amazon looking for that dopamine fix. Your next purchase. You're online looking for the thing that's shiny enough to warrant your attention. And attention, by the way, that's being triggered so frequently that your nervous system, the spark plugs of your nervous system, they're zapped out. They're blown. Okay? You don't have a nervous system anymore. It's fried. That's why you're on the anti-anxiety medication. That's why you're self-medicating. You don't trust the pharmaceutical company to treat you like a patient rather than a customer. So you become an alcoholic, or in certain states where it's legal, you self-medicate with cannabis. That's understandable. You have a lot of shit to worry about. You have an impending financial collapse in your future. You have a million undiagnosed diseases, but you don't know about them because you're terrified of going to the doctor. Not because he's going to tell you you're sick, but you're afraid to see the bill, and you're afraid that he's going to prescribe something to you that you'll become dependent on. You feel paranoid, but you can't tell your doctor that because then he's going to treat you for paranoia. So you're in an echo chamber of your own paranoia. It's a negative feedback loop that leaves you feeling exhausted. So you drink your cup of coffee in the morning to get you motivated, and you splash cold water on your face, and you look yourself in the eye in the mirror, and you put yourself away. You put your anxiety and depression in the medicine cabinet, and you re-engage in that habitual ritual, your routine, the set off daily behaviors that you call your life. These sets of daily habits is what you are. You wake up to an alarm, you shower, not because you're unclean, but because it's your routine. You don't have to shower. It just feels good to stand under the hot water. You're just wasting water. Who cares, though, right? It's water. There's more. Where does it come from? I don't know. It comes from the mountain. It comes from the rain. It's natural. It's free. Is it? It's clean. It's been treated. Water's been purified. It's safe, right? They put fluoride in it. Who does? I don't know. The government requires the water company to put fluoride in the water. Why? To protect your teeth. You believe that? Does that make sense to you? I'm not going to get too deep into the fluoride conspiracy shit on this episode. That's not what this one's about, but I could rant for a while on why I think fluoride in our water, the reasons behind it, are stupid. You're fluoridated without your asking for it. You don't have a choice in the matter. What does fluoride do besides make your teeth healthy? The reality is that any effects that it might have don't work in isolation. Every cog in this machine needs to be functional in order to create the perfect dystopia that the American way has become. And I'm not even sure it's dystopia. For some people it could be heaven here on earth. That's one side of it. When the Mormons come to your house to try to convince you that if you join their legion, then when you die you can be surrounded by nothing but Mormons, as if that's everyone's idea of utopia. It isn't. That's why their sales pitches never work in Utah. I don't actually want what they think I do. They haven't really thought about it. They haven't really ran it through its natural consequences. Why? You know, because they're afraid. They're afraid. Of course they're afraid. Why wouldn't they be afraid? Because on a cellular level, they know they're being lied to and manipulated. They know on a subconscious level that what they have faith in and what they believe in is some seriously flimsy rationale. You know, they're full of self-doubt, right? So they trust someone who seems to have their shit together, someone who speaks with an authority and tells you which way is up and what's right and wrong. In this way, they keep society in a state of relative order. Questions lead to uncertainty. Uncertainty leads to fear. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hatred. Hatred leads to the dark side, right? Is that all true? If so, then we really should be looking at who we are and facing our fear, so that when we look in the mirror and some of the confidence, if not certainty, that we aren't in fact operating out of fear, and that our action is life promoting and love promoting rather than fearful and negative, and for lack of a better word, evil. You know, how do you know you aren't evil? What kind of criteria are you judging yourself by? Do you even believe in evil? Some people can look evil straight in the eye and deny it even exists. How do these people do it? Denial, yeah. People have an incredible ability to look at something that's completely inhumane and fucked up and integrate it into their reality, but they move a lever in the mind to react somewhere else to compensate for the disconnect from reality. I'll give you an example, okay? You're scrolling on Facebook. On your news feed, you see a report from the southern border where children are reportedly being locked up in kennels and separated from their families and treated worse than animals. They're being treated the way we treat dogs. The disconnect is when we are outraged that we mistreat dogs. We have a tendency to humanize dogs and to humanize people. Why? Where does that come from? Because we're more afraid of each other than we are of dogs. That's basically the reality of it. Where does the fear come from? It comes from stories that we're told, that we tell ourselves, some internal, some external. We tell ourselves and each other stories that shape the world we live in. It informs it almost entirely. Manipulators know this. Manipulators are using quote-unquote narratives to sell you on an ideology. You're being bombarded with information that is causing chemical reactions in your brain that are frying your neurons. The device that you're watching this video on is jacking your nervous system. You are becoming addicted to the dopamine hits that your social media pages give you, the serotonin hits. Your life is becoming defined by the routine that IT has been integrated into. The NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, going on in the 90s was enough to get me to turn the television off. I didn't have a television or on a channel in my home from about 1996 to the present. But this shit with smartphones is a zillion times worse than commercials on television. I'm not shitting you. Russian propagandists are using social media to manipulate young white dudes to blame their problems on minorities with bots and cause shit like Charlottesville. People are addicted to their technology, and it's going to cause serious problems with people's mental health in the future. It's going to cause all sorts of invasive government surveillance state issues as well. I mean, think about it. There are kids going through puberty right now that have never lived in a world that wasn't connected to the web, to the net. It's scary. To me, this aspect of modernity is one of the most anxiety and depression causing. We will evolve or devolve. This type of human experience can't not change who we are. So we have to decide for ourselves, who are we? And when we're honest and we look in the mirror, in the black mirror, we see who we are. And we are the monsters at the end of that Grover book. When we're honest, human beings are actually the only species that's capable of evil, because we justify cruelty as virtue. Some of us have taken that deep look into what makes us who we are, you know, and they don't like what they see, so they change it. They go vegan, or they buy a pink hat and take the day off work and hold signs that explain why we shouldn't be putting rapists or racists or tax dodgers or draft dodgers in the White House. You know, they raise the bar. Take some Sacramento compounds and They go for a walk in the city or in a park, or they go to the desert and the mountains, or even the beach, and they just walk. Or they just sit and observe what's going on around them, in the time space they occupy. I used to love doing this shit, man. But then one time I was doing it, and I started seeing beyond the light. And it used to comfort me. I would be with my own thoughts and just be in the world, and I felt connected to everyone and everything because we're all occupying this time and space in a magical and beautiful place, this little blue marble that we all live on. The world is indescribably beautiful to someone who hasn't experienced it, but there is a sadness, and that weight can sink you and suffocate you and dismantle you. You know it exists. It's lurking under everything you tell yourself you are. This fear. It's the fear of the unknown. It's the abyss that Nietzsche describes it. And it's what drove him mad. So I understand why you wouldn't want to go staring into that abyss. I wouldn't suggest doing that. I wouldn't recommend it. Because if you do, if you try to do it alone, it'll devour you. It'll integrate you into it. You will go nuts. And not in the cool way that makes you interesting. Like Hunter S. Thompson nuts. That's what happened to Sid Barrett and Fred Nietzsche. In a lot of ways, I feel very fortunate for these guys in human history because when I felt my mind going in that direction, I completely understood where they were at when they'd really gone over that edge beyond the point of no return. But I had them as examples, like you're in the desert of the mind and you see skeletons and buzzards are overhead and you're in danger and you stare into the horizon and you just kind of start edging your way back a little bit, slowly. Why? Because you've seen second, third hand what happens to people when they go too far go too far inward. They lose their minds. Those guys that you see standing on the corner with the end is nigh signs, ranting. When Jesus went into the desert and hashed it out with the demons in his mind, that's what he was doing. You're going to have to do that eventually. It's better when you do it and when you have a better, greater understanding of who you actually are. Okay? When we all do it, when we all evolve our spirits and develop greater self-gnosis, that's when you get the golden ages. They come after some seriously dark periods, though. Dark ages. We aren't actually individuals. We just think we are. Because you're the only thing you can really prove exists in a Descartesian thought experiment. Reality feels illusory, and that's because it kind of is. Its existence relies on time and space, and that shit is moving. It's not solid. It's slipping through your fingers. You look in the mirror and you see the result of 10 years, 5,000 days. You see other people age more than you see it in yourself. You see an old friend who's old now. And you're like, God damn, man, you got old. How the hell did you get old and not me? Well, because two reasons. One, you don't look as young as you think you do. The other, you've been watching yourself age over time, so it's not this drastic change. We're all existing in a time and space that's actually not real. It's not real because it's moving. It's not real because it's in a perpetual state of entropy. It can't be defined because it's not just one thing. It's everything. And we're all moving toward a state of disorder, and nothing can stop that. But we can manipulate the laws of physics to our own preferences and agendas. Why is that important? What does that imply? It's what's motivating us, and our motives determine whether or not we're good or evil. Is that important? If you're Nietzsche, no, it's not important, beyond good and evil. This is where Jordan Peterson gives up his eternal prestige, though, because he agrees with Nietzsche to an extent. He checked himself into a rehab because he's abusing antidepressants. His wife may be dying of cancer. Maybe he didn't know that we're all dying. Maybe it never occurred to him. Perhaps he lacks empathy. Perhaps he went into psychology in the first place because he's fucking broken. He didn't think it all the way through to its obvious conclusions. Maybe he's a victim of his own privilege. I wonder how much of the abyss Peterson has looked into. Because I can't imagine he and Nietzsche and I saw the same things. If we did, we processed them entirely differently. You know, Nietzsche went stark fucking insane. Peterson got a god complex and went full on right winger. And I went stark mad, got a god complex, and then went full on left winger. I'm not about to turn this video into a confessional of my egotism though. Okay? Obviously I'm an egotist. I'm making this video. I make these videos to prove to myself I exist. Sometimes, you ever question your own existence? It's troubling. It causes anxiety and depression. That anxiety and depression is the real reason why I'm making these videos. Because if you're watching it, then you exist in a world, in this carnival with me. You are likely having an experience that is relatable on some level to mine. And I come on here and I tell you how I see the world, and you hear me out and you say, yeah man, you're right. Or, nah man, you're seeing Nazis where none exist. You think the world is way shittier than it actually is. You're living in a bubble or an echo chamber. Dude, you take yourself way too seriously. Or dude, you are speaking over everyone's head and really, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. All of that shit may be true. Someone asked me once, how do you know you aren't delusional? And I don't. I don't know if I'm delusional or not. You know, I'm going to assume that I am. In fact, I'm positive that I'm delusional on certain issues. I'm telling myself shit is one way even when I don't know, you know, for a fact that it is. I'm speculating. It's part of the paranoia that I have. You know, if you don't have a self-image that's 100% accurate, then that percentage is delusional. The delusion, right? You know, I know my self-image isn't 100% because I watch these videos to edit them and I cringe at how much of a douchebag I am the whole time. But then I just compare myself to every other talking head on the internet or television, and I'm willing to do this to not be rich and famous, not because I get but because I get self-gnosis from it. You know, I see myself in the way the world does, at least a little bit closer, and I realize how much of a fucking jackass I am. And now, you know, I can change that. I start fights with people online and they talk shit to me and tell me how stupid I am. And it's pathological for me because something weird happens when you face your fear. How do I explain this? How is it pathological? How can I explain that? It's something that concerns me. Okay, let's say you feel insecure and weak, and then nobody really likes you. People pick on you and bully you. One day you've had it. You've had enough. You've had enough with people fucking with you. And someone, you know, the same asshole that has made it part of their life habit, their routine, to make himself feel better about his lot in life by shitting on top of you and then judging his own version of hell in accordance to the hell he creates for you on a daily basis. That's how bullies operate. You know, don't ask me how I know this shit, because then I'll have to tell you that I've not only been bullied in my life, but I've also been a major fucking bully. I know, it's shocking. I understand if you can't believe that, but I know what I was telling myself to rationalize beating kids up that were smaller and weaker than I was. It's just the pecking order, dude. You know, the process goes like this. Fuck getting bullied today. I'm going to stand up for myself. You tell yourself that every day, by the way. And every day you don't stand up for yourself and you act like a little bitch. That makes making that change, that pattern, ever so harder. You know, you start digging yourself into ruts. You run a real risk of becoming that victim, okay? You realize it. And one day, you have an out-of-body experience. You rage against your bully, and you beat his ass mercilessly, and so ferociously, and publicly, that nobody ever fucks with you again. Sometimes that doesn't happen, though. Sometimes you try to fight him, but he just beats the fuck out of you, and then he mocks you, and then everybody knows that you are a weakling, that you're that dude to get punked on. You become the embodiment of hate, and then you start pulling that bully shit yourself. You know, that was my experience. Bullying kids makes you feel confident, though, so that when a bully tries to bully you, you're not sure if your bully really has any business bullying you. When you go into it, and you get into it, and you beat the fuck out of one another, and you both realize you're both fucking assholes. And then you become friends and you start a metal band or a punk band. Is that a healthy way to grow into the world? No, most definitely not. But that was the reality. And if you don't accept reality for what it is, then that in itself is pathology. And that's what the right wingers have right about the coddle generation, of victims that we are crippling by enabling. That's something that concerns me. We ought to not be going around making the world a safer place. We need to be tempering ourselves against the worst of it. On the other hand, we're literally turning this planet into a living hell in places like the Middle East and South America. We need to knock that shit the fuck off right now. Yesterday. Seriously. What we are allowing to be done in our name is inexcusable. It's doing nothing to calm our fear or our anxiety either. A nation of bullies. That's what we are. On the global stage, America is a big, giant fucking bully. And this is where we fucked up. And some of you are going to think I'm dead wrong about this approach, but I'm not a pacifist. I like to think I'm a pragmatist and have a realistic notion of what extinct human beings are, just a garbage species in the grandest scheme of evolution. Scorched earth. You don't see a lot of Native Americans complaining about their circumstances. Not because they have no legitimate grievance, but because they don't really exist in any effectual way anymore. It was thorough. Sun Tzu type shit. Dead men tell no revisionist tales type shit. Or tell no true tales, for that matter. You don't do what Israel's doing, because that's actually more evil than what they would be doing otherwise. They don't want to exterminate the Arab Muslim. They want to use them as an ideological bad guy and pretend they are in an existential threat to excuse their shitty behavior. To say that isn't anti-Semitic either. It's true. And there are millions of Jews that agree with that sentiment. Obedience without criticism of your government isn't patriotism, and it's not a fucking virtue, okay? Because I don't agree with what my government is doing with the money it steals from me, doesn't make me a traitor or an anti-American. It doesn't mean I don't love my country. It means I see what my government is doing, and it's evil, and I'd like them to stop and to better represent my values as a citizen. And I think that's what we all want. To get to the point of that is where democracy comes into it. It's beginning to occur to people more and more that the government doesn't have any real interest in representing the value of the people. Possibly because they think they know better what's good for the people. That's probably true. They probably do. But they also aren't interested in people being educated about the reality that we exist in. Us being informed does not serve them. Us being educated does not serve them. The Ouroboros shit that you're probably sick of me talking about. But it's the lattice of the reality we occupy. That's the framework. To keep the Leviathan fed, it has to believe that what it's eating is something other than itself. That's the delusion. The self-projected illusion that keeps evil on the throne. Lies keep the illusion going. The truth divides the lies and the curtains come down. The revelation causes people to lose their minds. They lose their shit. They go mad. Insanity is a psychotic break from reality, right? That's the definition of psychopathy. When you go insane, you lose your grip on reality. Well, what's causing people to lose their grip on reality? Take an honest, good look at it. What's causing that break with reality? Simply put, and it's true, is that we're being lied to. And we know we're being lied to, but we haven't figured out for ourselves what the truth actually is. And we don't know where to look, so we feel confused because we don't know, and we don't know what's true or real. That grip on reality, we feel like everything is a conspiracy in it, and it fuels paranoia. All of that shit comes from the wrong belief that any of us are actually separate. You were told that. You were told that evil people will eventually be separated from you. That after you die, you're finally going to be safe. Do you believe that? And why? Do you believe that because it's true, or do you believe it because you want to believe it? Why would you want to believe it if it weren't true? Because now you can function and operate without debilitating anxiety and fear and depression. That's not actually addressing what's causing the anxiety and the fear and the depression, though. It's just allowing you to operate and function within it. We're missing something very important here. We're missing the function of fear. Fear exists for a reason. It warns you of something that may be a threat to your existence. It motivates your behavior. It drives you. You will do irrational things if your fear is irrational. You will do rational things if your fear is rational. It's a crucial impetus for defining you as a human being. It exists subconsciously. It's deep-seated. So if you're an asshole, fear is likely the root of your personality. Religion exists to manipulate you through your fear and desire mechanisms that control your behavior. You can tell if a person has faced their fear or not by the values they hold. It's the responsibility of every single human being to address their fear. And what we all fear is the unknown. So it's critical that we face our ignorance. You remember what Kennedy said in that speech? The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Well, that's some bullshit when you think about it. That statement is meaningless. What does it mean to fear your fear? That doesn't make sense to me. When I see a racist, I see a coward. When I see a sexist, I see a coward. When I see an incel, coward, nationalist, zealot. Anyone that wants to control the world and protect themselves from externalities, foreign threats with walls and borders and guns and bullshit, cowards. Land of the free and the home of the brave. Neither of those adjectives accurately describe your typical American. Okay, we are not particularly free or brave. That's not who we are. What describes the typical American? Whatever t-shirt he or she is wearing and where they bought it. That says more about what America is than anything. America self-describes by brand loyalty and bumper stickers. We define ourselves by what we consume. We define ourselves by what roles we sell our lives for by the hour and to whom. I'm a Dallas Cowboy, Dodge Ram, steak and potatoes, Budweiser kind of guy. I'm a red meat, white pride, and blue collar kind of guy. Really? Is that what you are? That's what kind of guy you are? Thank God I live in a society where the chrome silhouettes of naked women no longer adorn the mud flaps of these kinds of guys. Ridiculous fashion statements like a $50,000 truck makes for these kinds of guys. That's one typical American. There are as many types of American as there are types of human being, though. There are billions of us, and we're all terrified of each other. We're terrified of each other because we know what we're capable of doing to someone else. And so we also know what others are capable of doing to us. That's the underlying fear that manifests as racism, fear of retribution, fear of reprisal. The white man knows that people of color and women have every reason to hate and distrust. The white man can dispense with his reality in one of two ways: acceptance or denial. Is the first fork in that path. If he denies it, then he doesn't understand the world, and the world is unknown, and he becomes fearful, and his reaction to his fear is manifest by dismissal. That's the type of racism Tommy Lauren exhibits. She's unaware of her racism because she's in denial that racism even actually exists. That's how it becomes systematic. When it's addressed, that's where you get microaggressions. It's a stupid term. It's not actually aggression, it's obliviousness. The aggression is manufactured. The oppressed are stupid too. You know that? They don't actually understand the situation they're in. Stupidity isn't just for the privileged. White men do not hold a monopoly on stupidity. Stupidity is pervasive and inclusive, and everybody is included. If you go down the other path of acceptance, then you have another fork, a schism. I accept, and now I just feel white guilt. Now you have white people making excuses for black people. That's where you get the racism of lowered expectations. That Democrat version of racism. You still don't actually understand the dilemma. The other fork in the acceptance isn't ideal, but it's the best possible position, and I'll explain why. You become a white black supremacist, a race traitor, blah, blah, blah. You become a civil rights activist. It's still not ideal because then you assume the white savior role. Black people will still have cause to resent you. Oh, look at this white boy. He thinks he's going to save the black race. You can't fucking win. So, stop trying to win. This is not your... the best you can do is to just check yourself. Check yourself. Know what kind of reality that we live in. Know that it's not fair for everyone. Know that you have a specific privilege and that everybody does. You know, a fucking weakness can be a superpower. Like, what's that fucking Greta Thunberg? You know, she's got Asperger's disease. That makes her a little bit different. In certain circumstances, her difference is a shortcoming, for lack of a better term. But in other circumstances, situations, her difference is a superhero skill, power, whatever the fuck. Okay. You have to understand though, as a white guy, you aren't inherently the devil. It's the part that you don't acknowledge that you do have that potential, even though you're innocent in your own mind. You refuse to view yourself as the way the world does. That's the part of you that's demonic, okay? And believe me, I know it sucks. Women and minorities launch full-on assaults on me because of the identities they project on me as a straight white male of privilege. You know, what I saw happen to ContraPoints last week happens to me too. Just not on Twitter. The left are eating their own. That's the underlying fear, that someone will take offense where none is intended. We bubble wrap the world rather than tempering ourselves. We step out of line. Our miscommunications turn bloody. And I'm not innocent in this shit. I'm aware of it, and it's still take the bait and fall into the trap of habitual response from time to time. And I'm telling you, that habitual response is culture, and it's sublime, and it's also intentional. It's self-preservation without the self-gnosis or of the Ouroboros. You see what I mean? We're killing and eating ourselves in order to preserve ourselves. It's a self-defeating paradox. Mind control, media manipulation, social media manipulation, free speech, all of these topical issues du jour that demand our attention and facilitate our emotional responses, reactions, are designed by the machine to provoke specific behavior from you. Who or what is the machine? Everything that exists to exercise dominion over nature, really. Because nature created everything that is, so any and everything that exists is natural. Is a beaver unnatural because it builds dams, manipulates its environment? Are human beings any different because we manipulate our environments to better serve us? What's natural? You ever see two dogs unfamiliar with each other? They want to go to war over territory. Is that natural? Our society is informed by time, chronos. We're governed by time measurers. You know, to tell us go to sleep. Why? Because the alarm is set to go off at 5 a.m. Why? To get your ass out of bed and on the plantation and working by sunrise. Why? To work, to create value for society. The only exception are artists, and even they serve the masters of time, space, energy, and attention. You know, to be an elite is to be a slave master. Even the shaman is an exploiter. The shaman or the artist, the healer, the sage, the musician, the wise man, the authoritarian. That's why I never wanted to be one. It all seems so phony. I never felt like I could actually make relevant art unless I was in the working class, unless I was in the slave class. And I do believe that that's why Jordan Peterson collects communist art. I think that's the motive behind it. I saw it for what it was. Joe Rogan and Maynard James Keenan sitting in Joe's studio in California having a conversation about what? What is that? What's going on with that? Why is it public? Why are they having a public conversation about service animals on airplanes and the new Tool album and wine and jujitsu and art? You know, what is art? Art can inspire. It can also placate and sedate. Why do they engage with it? My guess, because I've never sat down with either of them, is two reasons. You know, it's helpful to them because their existence, no, not their existence, they have every opportunity to work, but their luxury requires human attention in capitalism. If they can't generate revenue, then they have to do what you and I do, be a slave. What the guys from Rage Against the Machine realized is that slavery is an inherent element to civilization. Even the king is a slave to his creature needs. You see what I mean? So they named their new band that wasn't a vulgar display of hypocrisy, Audio Slave. They became the machine they raged against. They beat them by joining them. And that's what's up. If everyone just united, that's fascism, right? Homogeneity, that's fascism. To be one, united against a common fear, is fascism. We're all fascists. The real fascists on the right call the fascists on the left the real fascists. They're both correct. Media manipulation is happening. It's happening everywhere. Russia, China, the United States, the United Kingdom. Fear is the easiest way to motivate you to behave in ways that are beneficial to forces and sources beyond you. Okay? So stop being afraid. Also, stop wanting shit. That desire is a reaction to fear too. You want things because you think that the things you want will protect you from the things you fear. Both of those motivators are being used against you to keep you engaged in materialism and to distract you from what's actually important. And that's that what's important. The Soul Reaver game that's being played, the Ouroboros thing, everything is food for bigger predators. You're food. The universe is conflict in unity. And so we're confused. That confusion places fear above understanding and love and appreciation in our hierarchy of priorities, and it's pathological for us as a species. You see, we familiarize ourselves with it, with what is killing us. It's still killing us, but we aren't afraid of it. Meanwhile, we don't know what is beneficial to us because we aren't familiar with it, so we're intent on killing it. So what's the cure? The cure is a radical shift in our priorities. And that's happening. We're searching for deeper meaning. While we do that, though, it would serve us very well to look deeply in the humanity of every soul we come in contact with and try with all our might to understand each other's points of view. And that's going to take courage. You have to know what you are so you aren't afraid to die, so that you can live in harmony with the environment that you're a part of. And it's not separate from you. You're an element of it. Okay? So to be kind, you must know what kind of kind you are. And that's all I have to say today. Stay engaged. Do something today that makes you smile. Try to make that smile contagious. We're in this weird reality together, whether we like it or not. So get used to it. Enjoy yourselves. Thanks for engaging.